I'm here with Luke Della, Coach Dell. Welcome to Bunnies TV.
Thanks for having me, mate. Really enjoy, any sort of time we get to have a chat. So it's great to be here today, and thanks for inviting me in.
No worries, mate. Now, you've been at South for 3 years, but we'll get straight to the point. There's no role for you now, so tell us about that.
The pathways have changed, obviously, and grown over the last few years, and just sort of, obviously with myself living a little bit, out of town. I live out west, and, so it's a little bit more difficult to to come in, and then, just with the amount of sort of time I've had away from the family the last couple of years, it probably need to be doing something a bit closer to home, and and the way sort of things have changed a little bit with people doing different roles. It's probably the right time, for myself to, step away from it a little bit. And unfortunately, it's not ideal because I love the club and love what I'm doing and all the boys and that, as you know. And that's just the situation we're in at the moment.
So you did love your time at the club. It was a dream job.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, early on, you get a bit starstruck, getting to wear the rabbit on your chest every day, with some of the greats of the club that get to do it as well. And I've done it for a long time. But, absolutely. Love the club. Loved everything I did there. And, as we'll touch on it shortly, some of the things I got to do. But definitely, I certainly miss it. That's for sure. I'm already missing it now in the off-season. So.
Yeah, well, I had a look. And last year you said after a game, we went through the highs and lows together. But one thing will always remain. My love for these boys.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm not sure of that game because I'll probably say similar things a fair bit because, that's what sticks to me. I mean, we've gone through, I think that game you might be referring to was actually a fleet game against Manly.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Now it's coming back to mind. Yeah, we were we're out in front by a fair way and probably should have iced it, but we didn't. And, that was a day where, you've seen a lot of the boys go through a fair bit, and I reckon they grew a lot out of it. Very quickly. So, yeah, look, you still love them. Like, they're in there kicking themselves, and they don't need a coach or anyone involved to go and sort of be any, they've already got enough on their shoulders. So, so you just got to try and lift them up, and that's what we try to do. And it was a great side we had, actually. Things didn't pan out for us last year in the flag, but we've got some good guys that came through there and have kicked on since, yeah.
They have, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But there was no sour grapes from you because I spoke to you about this, and a couple of things that I've noted you said. You'll cherish forever your time at the club, and you will always support the players in the club. So that's the right attitude to take.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I still have friends there, and I've built a lot of relationships. I'm not from Sydney, I'm from Queensland, so I've only been in Sydney 2016. So, that's not long. So half of my time has been at South, so which has been the most enjoyable time I've had in rugby league. Before I got there, I only had met Joe and knew of Joe, so everything I did and learned there was new.
Yep.
But absolutely, no sour grapes from me at all. I mean, hopefully one day there might be something for me to come back to there, or, there might be an invitation to come back. But and I certainly, all the players, like I still talk to a lot of the boys now anyway.
Yep.
That's from all the different teams I've coached since I've been there. But, yeah, absolutely, no, it's a great club, and I'd always help. Any phone call I got, I'd always help anyone. So
so we'll talk about the club when you arrive. So you mentioned a bit starstruck. Who's some of the stars, the first grade stars that you've had a bit to do with or got to know?
Well, early on, probably John Sutton stands out. I'd never met Sutto before prior to getting to the club, and when I think of South Sydney, I think of John Sutton. I think of Sam Burgess, your Isaac Lukes, your guys like that, Jason Clarkson. Alex Johnson's, but when, you get to see him on TV and everyone spoke about how good a bloke he is and how laid back he is, until you get to know him on a personal level, it's that was definitely one. And I've always been a big fan when he first joined, come through the grade of Cam Murray, and I still am.
Yep.
He's my favourite footballer, and obviously
there
just...
There.
Oh, yeah, I've got one of them.
Right behind him.
I've actually got one of them at home on my desk. So, he's been one that when I first seen him around the place, it was pretty cool. And but I mean, until you get to know him I don't know a lot of the first grade as well. But what I do know is, the amount of work they do in the community and with younger people and teams and things like that. And it's hard to not admire them. And you sort of don't become starstruck anymore. In terms of what they do football wise, it's just how much time they give and things like that, and what they give back to everyone else is probably the thing that amazes you the most. Yeah.
So you mentioned Joe O'Callaghan, who's just been promoted to assistant coach, but I think you might have arrived around the time Joe got there or a bit after, and we do focus on the pathways here, the younger teams and the girls and the boys here in Bunnies TV, and let's talk about the progression that system's made since you and Joe sort of got there until now.
Yeah, well, to answer your question, no, Joe had just gotten there prior. He came, so his first season, I believe, was 2020. So he came in 2019 with the club. I think he originally started as like he did a lot of trying to help the guys set up some jobs and courses and stuff, as well as his coaching with the flag. And then 2020 season was only one game. So after one game, they cut the season short, which I think from memory they beat Cronulla by 2 points. So it was just before I joined. And then I joined halfway through that season, and the junior. So Joe was rolling into his second season. He was the head of pathways. He took over the head of pathways then, and they started the new framework that he built with JD, I believe. But Joe put a lot of time and energy into that, and then the juniors and the seniors amalgamated, which for the first time, which I can't probably comment too much prior to when I got there, but I know that Luke and Keith and all the guys at the juniors do a great job. So that obviously hasn't changed, but you know it's exciting. I got in there at that stage halfway through 2020 when they did join and it was all under one roof, and then from then to now, you can see the growth. Not just how many guys have probably progressed in the first grade more so than when I first started, but there's a lot more staff. There's a lot more. The facilities are growing. But if you had a look, I think we might have had 20 staff in pathways earlier on. Now there's probably double that.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's it's opened up different roles. You know, like Joe, he covered a few roles, and you had Michelle Arnold who stepped in and took over more of the admin side of it, so that freed up Joe. And then Brent Hill does a lot of the recruitment and does a fantastic job with that. And then Donna Smith took over the job from Michelle and has grown that. You know what Donna's like; she doesn't rest, so she's grown that as well. And then and now this year, obviously with Joe stepping up full time into NRL coaching, which for me, having known him for a long time, it was only going to be a matter of when, not if. He's fantastic, and so then he moved into a different role, and then I believe there's a couple of different guys covering different roles next year. So it's certainly evolved and grown in terms of roles and what people do. So to answer your question long-windedly,
that's all right.
It's certainly grown and developed in the right sort of upward. So yeah, it's going good.
Well, I agree about the partnership with the juniors because they are a sponsor of the show, as you can see behind over Luke's shoulder there. But just it always should have been like that, to have this close partnership with this rugby league nursery that's always supplied so much talent to the club. So I think that's good. And then also they've moved into the Rabbitohs Centre now, so that's exciting as well to have a facility like that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look across, I've been involved in a few pathways. Like I came from the Panthers prior to being at South, and they've got great facilities obviously as well. But, you know, being from Queensland, you don't often see, you know, like the pathway teams don't have the facilities that we do. You know, like at Erskineville Oval, you only got to walk in the gym or up in the theatre room, and that's even been dressed up. Joe dressed it up when he first got there, and you know, the Redfern Oval, which has got so much history, and, you know, where all the NRL stuff's been done for a long time, and the Pathways teams get access to that, to now the new centre. Like, it's just fantastic for, you know, the players have never been looked after better, and it's a great, you know, environment for the staff to turn up and do their work at as well.
So it must be satisfying, the work you've done. Now, we'll start with the Harold Mats, and then we'll talk about the flag. But, you know, the progression for some of those guys to come through and win the grand final and the state championships must have been satisfying to see some of these kids come through.
Oh, absolutely. Are you talking about the New South Wales Cup one?
The New South Wales Cup,
So I actually wrote some names down. I didn't want to forget anyone. So when I first came to the club, the first year I only did jersey flag as an assistant to Joe. But in that team, we had some guys that had just come out of SG ball into flag following their junior rep season. So that was guys like Dion Tiapa, Josiah Karapani, who didn't play in the final series, but he was one. Obviously, Tallis Duncan, Davey Mwali, they all played in that SG Bull team that went really well and made the semi-finals, as well as Romano Cook. And then from there, the rest of that flag team, we had guys like Myla Chan-Foon, Pete Mamazoulis, Benny Lovett are all featured in that New South Wales Cup as well. So, yeah, to see those guys, and even someone like Tyrone Munro, who my very first job at the club was when the NRL was in the bubble. Joe was in the bubble. He couldn't go down to the junior rep trial, so he only got to watch it footage-wise. And Beau Falloon was away with work. He was the head coach that year of Harold Matts, and myself and Dion's dad, John Tiapa, took the trials. We took a team each, and one kid that was down there that day was Tyrone Munro, who
Wow.
just wrote his name down and walked in. Did some pretty impressive things, obviously, and now he's played, I think, 3 games of first grade this year, and so it's incredible to think, 3 years ago, he was at an open Harold Match trial, now playing first grade. So
Awesome.
yeah,
And Joe has said this to me as well. Like, they didn't just want to make a pathways system to produce first graders. They want to produce quality first graders, and I think that's what they're doing. So you mentioned there, Davey Mawali, he's just played 2 tests for the Cookies, and he's played pretty good.
Oh.
Tyrone scored a try on debut, scored a double the next week, I think it was. Tallis is going well. Benny Lovett, so the list goes on of success stories coming through in the club.
Well, and just on what you said about Tyrone scoring tries, he's actually every debut team he's played in, he scored a try in his first game. So it's incredible. It's, with him, the first, he obviously played a couple of years of flag, which I was involved with as well. And just some of the things you could see him do at training, you just hope that, because he's so laid back and he's so easy going to talk to, you just hope that, inside him he's got a burning desire to kick on, which obviously he worked out how good he was, and now look at the sky's the limit for him. He'll play a lot of first grade and maybe even more. But, so it's pleasing to see guys like that. And just what you said, like, just some of the quality, like, and, in 3 or 4 years' time, I'd reckon that NRL team would be, I'd say it'd be 75, 80% local juniors if they keep going the way they are.
Keep going the way they are, yeah. And he did seem very determined when I interviewed him during the final series that have just passed. Tyrone said, I'm going to work on me, like, building up the body a bit over the off-season because he realises that he's a bit slight. And if he does that and, adds a few kilos, look out, the NRL.
Oh, absolutely. I seen a photo of him the other day, actually. He was on holiday somewhere and he was working out with his shirt off, and he already looks like he's grown a little bit. So
yeah, there you go.
And I think he's pretty close with Josh Addo-Carr.
Yeah, he is.
And their cousins. So I think he's been doing a fair bit of training with him. So
there you go.
Hopefully the Fox will keep him motivated. And
yeah.
I know he's got a great support team and great family and everything as well, which will help him out. And he's at the best club to be looked after. So he'll definitely. I can't see any reason why he won't progress.
Yeah, hope he's not doing boxing training with the Fox because might up a few. So you took the Mats for a year too. So there's some good kids coming through from that squad too.
Well, I had them for 2 years. So the first year,
there you go.
So 2020, when I joined for the pre-season for 21, I was assistant coach, as I said, with Joe for his Jersey Flegg side, and then following that, he sort of just said to me, he goes, have you got any anything, like, have you got any aspirations to do junior rep coaching? Because I'd already done Mats and Bull and that a few times. And I sort of said to him, yeah, look, I'd be interested in doing it. And then I'm not sure, I think Beau moved up to SG Ball with Sato, and then the role became available and he asked me if I'd be interested in doing it. So basically from there, I did it the first year, which we had a lot of Botany Rams actually. The first year we had a lot of local juniors, and then following that, I couldn't put it down. I asked, could I do it again? And so I did it for a second year this year, and then had a couple of dual roles as we went. So yeah, the Harold Mats, I really enjoy that age group. It's obviously moved up from 15, 16-year-olds, but to now 17 since the COVID sort of changed it all. We lost that year and a half, but it's something I really enjoyed at the club, and it's not something I obviously thought it was going to happen when I first got there, but panned out that way, and I'm glad I sort of fell into that.
Yeah, and look, there wasn't a lot of success, but I think I spoke to Joe about this as well, and from where they were before to where they sort of are now, and it is a hard cop, Harold Mats. I mean, I played there 2 years and we got smashed both times because, besides like Penrith, Parramatta, they're big boys, and it is a very difficult competition, the Harold Mats.
Well, people treat it different too, mate. Like, at South, they obviously try and promote as many local juniors as possible, and because that's what it's all about. If you grow up in Botany, Maroubra, Maddo, you want to play for the Rabbitohs, don't you?
Yeah.
And You know, whereas a lot of other clubs fly kids in from all over the place and put satellites here and there, which
True.
And you know, and so that makes it a bit more difficult to compete with. And so they've got a great junior system here at South. So it's just a matter of keep growing on that and getting more people involved in playing. But yeah, look, in terms of success, you know, people obviously always measure it on results and where you finish on the ladder. But it's easy for me to say this now that obviously we didn't make the semi-finals both years, but we sort of moved up the ladder the second year.
Well, there you go.
But, you know, we won. I think we'd won the first year we won. Joe come and shook me in after a game and said, I've won more games than the year before. And then likewise last year, which we probably, to be fair, the squad we had, we probably should have made the semi-finals this year. It makes it hard with school and juggling other sports and commitments that these kids have, and they're elite kids, and you don't want to stop them doing too much. And but it is hard to compete with some of the other regions, like you say, and which have got school programs that look after a lot of the stuff for the clubs as well. So it's. But in saying that, we still did well, especially this year. We got a few external kids in to go off our local juniors, and I thought the boys actually held themselves really well. It's probably we should have won a couple more games.
I was going to say that. I watched a few, and I think I filmed a few for Bunnies TV. And there was a couple of games where I think you just led and you just let it slip, and that would be frustrating as a coach, wouldn't it?
Oh, not frustrating for me personally because we lost. Probably more frustrating for the boys because I know that they did the work to win the game. You know what I mean? I mean, round one at Redfern, we played Canterbury. We had them up 10-0. Canterbury ended up winning the grand final.
Yeah.
Lost one game all year. We had them on toast, and then half time they got back to they're up 18-10, I think it was, and then we went out and scored 2 or 3 quick tries. We're back in front again.
Yeah.
And they've got a couple of real. We didn't play well in the last bit of the second half, and they ran over the top of us in the end. But they had some pretty special kids, which will play first grade there shortly. But we had teams like that. We drew with Penrith. We're down 24-12, got back to 24 all right on full time. Had a kick to win it from halfway, but obviously didn't go over. But then Cronulla, who were one game from the grand final, we drew with them. We should have beat them. We were up by 10 with 2 minutes to go, and they scored 2 quick ones and end up a draw. So, I mean, some really top quality junior rep systems. We beat Newcastle, who lost the grand final. We were down 22-6 at half time.
Yep. Come
back to beat them 24-22. So there was some good results against good teams, but you just every week it's like the NRL at a lot lesser level. You just got to be there every week. You just got to have everything go your way. You got to be healthy. You got to make sure, and it's a big deal for the kids. Like they're coming in a lot of them their first time and rep stuff, so the work rate from school stuff or club, it just goes through the roof, and it's a lot harder, and they've got to adapt to it, and it's only a short period of time. You only train for 2 or 3 months before your season. So
I know a couple of the kids had to go back to their private schools and that, so that was a bit tough too, a few of them. So
yeah, the last sort of 3 or 4 games we lost quite a few of the boys, our better players as well, and but other clubs deal with that too. It's just we've just it just obviously affects us a little bit more sometimes because you got kids, especially you got some kids that live away from home and are boarding at schools and things like that. So I take my hat off to them, and they've got a lot on their plate as it is. So so that they have to go and do their school stuff.
Well, that's right. Well, I think a lot of them are on scholarships and that, so they got it. That's their priority to make sure they get their schooling right.
Absolutely.
So, and a couple of kids, I think one I noticed was a Charlie Poynton. He's a flasher down the left flank, and maybe 1 or 2 others.
Well, at the start of the year, he came over with the Berryman boys, so Tomoko and Tyler Berryman. So Harry, he runs some sort of a sports program over there where he does a lot with all those guys, and he was unwanted by Manly. So Brent Hill actually tipped me off about him. Said this kid's special. He's a rugby player, so we got him in. He came down and he played fullback in rugby. But I just the way our team was balanced, I thought, and you would have seen in that trial, I played him in the centres against Balmain in the trials, I think it was.
Yep.
And he ran amok. He scored a couple of really good tries and just defensively held his own. And so that's where we played him. And I believe he's back next year. And if he decides, I'm not sure long term what his plans are. I know he plays a lot of high level rugby and he's at a school. I think he goes to Barker for rugby. So I'm not sure long term if he's he wants to play rugby league, but if he wants to and makes a fist of it, he's certainly one.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I thought he looked like the old Terry Fay flashing down there at was that Marcelin Fields earlier in the year. So anyway, that's one to watch. So you mentioned that these other programs have got feeder clubs, and we're expanding. We've got the Queensland Black Rabbits have expanded to Cobra Park School and also the Townsville Blackhawks. So that's good that we're going up your home state and poaching some of their players like all the other clubs do.
Well, I just think you sort of have to now. I mean,
yeah, you do.
You know, not just to compete, but you gotta keep sort of a rugby league team in the club. Nothing you don't know. You played first grade yourself, but you need different people in your team. You need your workers. You need you might need some kids that have grown up in different areas and things like that. So you need a different makeup of kids. So that certainly helps that. But then, if you're good enough to play NRL, it shouldn't matter where you live. I mean, there's got to be something there for you. And I think it wouldn't surprise me one day if we get into New Zealand, or the club gets into New Zealand or somewhere like that as well. But I know Joe did a lot of work with the one in, I think they ran it through Marsden High in Brisbane. So he did that. And then obviously they've just expanded to Cobra Park, which was, it's a rugby league nursery up there.
Yeah.
I think they used to do a lot with West Tigers. It's where Benji Marshall and Rangi Chase and guys like that came through.
Yeah.
For feeder, Tanner Boyd, guys like that.
Wow.
So it's a great school, yeah. So obviously, Joe and Brock and Ella and all that, they obviously know what they're doing, and they've two areas which are well known and successful for rugby league. So
Yep. And I've got to know a lot of the kids. This year I met a big fella called TJ Toive. There's a few like that people might not know about. He's got a bit of ability, the big fella.
He does. He actually lives in the same suburb as me out west, so he does a bit of travelling himself.
Yep.
And I'll take my hat off to him this year. He did an ACL. He never missed training. He was always there doing his rehab, and he's like me. He travels in an hour, so and after doing construction all day, so he's we picked him up from the Roosters mid-22, so middle of last year, and for some reason I didn't want him, which I don't understand. That obviously got enough there, but he's a great kid, works hard, trains. I'd love to see him this year. He would have been big for the flag team. But he's terrific kid, humble. His cousin actually is Kynan Tove that played in Harold Mats this year and is a Black Rabbit now. Yep. So I look forward to watching both of those guys progress. Hopefully through the club in the next few years as well.
Couple to watch. So we'll get back to you, mate. So you're originally from the Goldie, Brisbane area.
Yep.
But you're a Knights fan. How did that happen?
So my dad, he's passed now, so God rest his soul.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it's fine. So he was a Manly supporter. He's actually from Blaney, but he came in and played some lower leagues, so like your New South Wales Cup and that. When he was a younger, and he was a Manly supporter, and I just used to hate the way he carried on. And back then, when I was a kid, Newcastle and Manly were quite big rivals, so I sort of just did it to get one up on him, and just to have a bit of banter with him at a young age, and I just stuck. So I'd always gone for the Knights, and and then obviously you had some good players coming through to admire, and the Chief and Steve Simpson and Ben Kennedy and Butterfield, and then the Johns boys, Robbie O. So there's a lot of guys there that were easy to follow. Yep. And I've just always stuck by them. So yeah.
I suppose you got your love of rugby league from your dad, but
I did. Yeah, there's a photo of me on my socials. You'll see of me and my old man when I was probably 3 or 4 kicking a footy. So he was. I said to someone the other day, I would love to sit down with my dad now and talk to him footy, because I don't actually know how far his knowledge went, but I know that he taught me everything I knew at a young age. So. So it came from him, and my mum's always been, been a lover of rugby league, and growing up, once her and dad split up, she would take me to every field that I wanted to go to, even though that back in those days, 30 years ago, it was a lot different. You didn't have a lot of money and things like that, and she was working to provide for me and my sister herself, so she would take us out to a lot of games, so I didn't miss out, and so I owe a lot to my mum as well. In that regard. But so it all come from my parents.
And you're a dad now yourself. You got 2 daughters just the same as me. They grow up pretty fast.
Oh, it's crazy. My oldest is 7 now, and she just had her first sports carnival the other day. So I remember when she was the youngest one's age, like, where's it gone?
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love it. It's the best thing in the world being a dad.
And you had a proud dad moment. She carved them up.
She did. I actually gave her. My wife told me off a bit because I gave her a bit of a pep talk before she left. I sat her on the lounge and made her look at me in the eyes, and I just sort of said, "There's no dinner for you if you don't win," and as a bit of a joke. But yeah, she's both of my girls actually going to be pretty good handy sport wise. Like you can just tell by some of the way they do things, and she apparently won every event, so it's no surprise.
So good.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Yeah.
And so you played a bit of footy as a young fella. You broke your leg in 2012 because we've spoken to you on the show before. So how's the leg now? And
leg's all good. Like it obviously stopped me from continually playing at a decent level, and so following that, I played a little bit in the next couple of years, but my heart wasn't in anymore. And I remember a time where it's 2013. I played reserve grade for the club, Southport Tigers, which is where we won the premiership that year. But I just remember like a kid that I used to play against his dad, and now I was in teammates with him. This little kid was 8 or 9, I remember growing up. He's now 15, running up the hill past me, and I just thought to myself, if that's where I'm at now, like it's probably the right time for me to step away. And I always had interest in not necessarily wanting to be a coach, but how else could I be involved if I'm not playing? And it just fell in my lap. I started coaching, and I've done it since. So.
Yeah, and I think your style, you've said, is that you coach to players' strengths.
I like to think so, and just being. A lot of players now get seen for what they can and can't do on the field, and I like to, person first, player second, and that's probably one of my strengths is relationship building, and then obviously, being able to bring the best out in the person, which then naturally their football improves. So yeah, that's one of my way. If you're talking actual football sense, it would be trying to play to people's strengths and help them work on other areas that they might not be so great in.
Yeah, and I suppose in these pathway systems, a lot of these kids have got miles of ability, so it'd be a fun job, to just focus on the things they do best.
Oh, absolutely, and the best part about it is like you said before about is it frustrating when they lose? Well, for them, but when they're winning and they're doing good things, and you can ring them up and say you're playing this week, you're making your debut, or you see them have accolades at school. Like to me, that's the best. Like not saying that it's I'm responsible for it, but being a part of, you're on the journey at the same time with them. And for me, a win is when they do achieve that, and they just don't understand sometimes the gravity of what they're doing until later on. So yeah, like that's unreal seeing them succeed and things like that. So yeah,
you get to sing the song a fair bit with them at the end.
Oh mate, that's when you win. You're out there on a high on the field, but you know yourself, getting ready to go in and sing that song, it's the best. Like you're looking around, everyone's happy, and you just get to sing it, and just everything, whether you won ugly or you won well, it's irrelevant because
doesn't matter.
It's a happy moment regardless. So yeah.
Besides footy and family, what else you like doing, mate?
I've actually, some people that know me pretty well might laugh at this, but I've actually spent a fair bit of time out in the yard now. So. Just on the weekend, actually, I'm still a bit sore. My body's getting a bit old, but I ripped out some old trees, and grass is always looking pretty green. So I don't actually have a lot of spare time, to be fair. My eldest takes up a fair bit of our time, and then we've got a little 2-year-old now. So, but outside of that, yeah, just obviously watching any sport you can that's on at any time of the day, and just spending some time with the kids, and then just out in the yard and things like that. That's probably where I'm at.
What's in store for you now, mate? What's the future hold? Got any plans?
Look, I've got a couple of things. Obviously, the priority is probably to do something a bit closer to home. And probably, to be honest, take a step back from some of the junior stuff and get back involved. Because prior to coming to South, I've done a bit with seniors and men and things like that. So I might look at having a season doing that next year, a bit closer to home, and just to reset myself a bit. Joe gave me some good advice, actually. He just sort of said, sometimes you just got to reset yourself, take a breath, have a look what you want to do, and then go from there. And my goals haven't changed. Like, I don't necessarily want to make it all the way to NRL as a coach. If I could, one day be a head coach of Flag or be in New South Wales Cup, or even if it went any further, then that's great for me.
Yep.
Because I know that those kids that have got to those levels have been a part of something that I've been a part of in the past. So that's... But to answer your question, I'll probably do some stuff a bit closer to home. Probably in the Ron Massey Cup space with Mounties. Well, I will be, not probably.
Cool.
So I've been giving those guys a bit of a hand and Luke Brannigan's the head coach. He's an ex-Rabbitoh junior.
Yep.
Which you know well, and so he's a head coach. And then there's a gentleman out there, Alex Miller, who's he's only a young fella, but done a terrific job in setting the club back up in the last couple of years since the takeover and everything's happened. So yeah, that's what I'll be looking to do next year. And yeah.
Well, there's a spot here as a guest host whenever you like, mate, because you've done really well today. You're very impressive. And I've got a Bunnies TV shirt here where I've got merchandise available on the website. So here's a shirt for you and a Bunnies TV sticker, mate.
Thanks very much.
And good luck with everything, Del, and thanks for joining me on Bunnies TV.
No, I just want to, before I go, I appreciate that, Mavo, but just thanks very much to the last few years being involved, and you've always supported myself and any team I've been involved with, and just looking around this room here, see how much this sort of club means to you. And I've moved on from the club now a few months ago, but when I speak to guys like yourself and you look around and see this, like, it's still you still feel it in your heart. So any time that I can help with anything or things like that, or if any of the the fans or anything want to have a chat about anything I've done in the Pathways, by all means. And I just appreciate everyone's time and support, and hopefully I can be back one day.
You've helped us out heaps too, mate, so I appreciate it.
No worries at all.
Go on you, mate.
Thanks.